Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Tennille and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. And today we're not looking at any animated films, except for
films, but they're not theatrically released.
Yeah, because we are looking at TV specials and shorts from the 1970s. All of the 1970s. And by no means is this an exhaustive list, but this is not the main goal of Animation Pilgrimage, so we're just kind of highlighting a few that we feel are better, exemplify some of the better aspects of these genres.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was actually listening. This will feel like a tangent, but I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
I was listening to Lindsay Ellis's podcast, Musical Splaining, last night, and she was talking about The Sound of Music and how the 50s to the 80s, or more so like the 60s to the 80s, that span of 10 years that is the 70s is where like so much changed drastically in film.
Yeah.
And like, of course, from an animation perspective, you know, I want to look at this and I want to say, well, yeah, like, you know, Walt has died. The Disney company is, you know, struggling to get by. TV has
skyrocketed in popularity.
But
Ralph
it's also
Bakshi came around.
Yeah, but it's also a very, like, people don't know, like, what to make of TV, because like it's all very low budget stuff made for kids, but kind of not as well. And then also like you have the boom of Japanese animation, and a lot of our stuff is getting ported to Japan and then being brought back over here. And yeah, Ralph Bakshi comes along, and
so
he's not making kids content at all.
Edgy adult stuff is starting to become a thing.
Right. And then, you know, you think about 80s, and it all just kind of homogenizes again. But like it's so true that the atmosphere here in the 70s is unlike anything else that you see, because it's just like trying to find its identity again. And I would say that is represented here in these films that we watch, but not really.
No, it's... Honestly,
I think this is more so a conversation that'll be had again when we talk about the 70s as a whole. But yeah, these short films, they do range in a weird quality. Most of these were made for TV first, and then some were actually theatrically released later. But they don't have like that same, I don't know, like identity as before, or the same kind of stuff as what we'll see later.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, most of these are very samey, and that's mostly because a lot of these are made by the same company.
Rankin Bass. Because how could we talk about the history of animation and not talk about Rankin Bass?
Rankin Bass, who has mostly stopped making theatrically released films at this point in the 70s.
Because it's really not where they thrive.
No, they make TV specials and stuff like that. And in fact, we're going to be talking about 5 different shorts or specials during this episode. I don't think we'll talk about what they all are. You'll just have to stick around to find out. But the first one we are talking about from 1970 itself is Santa Claus is Coming to Town from Rankin Bass. Because why I would not talk about more Rankin Bass Christmas specials.
So we're talking about 5 different shorts. 3 of the 5 are Christmas related.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Our
love
favorite
TV
holiday
specials because they're always about Christmas. My favorite holiday.
I mean, I can't speak for you, but this short and a lot of these other Rankin Bass holiday specials, I've seen so many times that even though it had been years since I had seen this, I think I could have quoted this movie verbatim while we were watching it.
Yeah, and you were.
Yeah, well...
So, Santa Claus is coming to town. We're not going to go into a whole lot of plot, but just know it's a Santa Claus origin story, number 17, though it's relatively early on, so it might just be number 12.
Well, yeah, because, like, the whole Santa Claus mythos is really starting to, like, take hold around this time. It's weird because watching these movies, I kind of... Like, I always knew that Santa Claus was, like, a myth we've made up, like, rather recently. But rewatching this movie, in particular, kind of put it more into perspective for me, where I'm like, oh yeah,
they're still formulating what all this means. Like, this short in particular takes a bunch of pop music about Santa Claus and puts it all together and tries to make a cohesive mythos out of all of them.
Well, yeah. Well, and... You know, I had another moment watching this where I realized, like, wait, before this came out, we didn't have these Christmas songs.
Well, some of them were.
Yeah, but, like, this is the version that gets played out nowadays. And, you know, like, a lot of these Christmas things that we do are because of this short or... Like, this short has become a part of holiday traditions. And that's both wild because, like, this isn't very good.
It sucks. It's quite bad.
And two, it's, like, amazing because people and culture and everything. But also, I think it's important to keep in mind that, like, just because something is a tradition doesn't mean it's been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not holy. It's not, like... something that you can't question.
This came out in 1970. It is 50 years old. Only 50 years old.
Right.
That is not even twice my age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, who cares? If you don't like this crap, throw it out. Make your own traditions.
Anyway, some interesting things about this short. Fred Astaire plays the role of the postman. Mickey Rooney plays the role of Santa Claus or Kris Kringle in this film. And like we've mentioned before with a lot of Rankin Bass stuff, this was animated in Japan and produced in America. The Japanese studio that did these stop motion films called the stop motion technique that they used Animagic.
Okay. And they weren't credited in most of the American releases.
Oh, of course not.
Because Americans are racist, and they would not like to know that their beloved Christmas specials are being made by a bunch of foreigners.
Oh,
Oh no. 3 of the 5 movies here weren't made in America, but were marketed for Americans.
Yeah.
I also want to say that there's some questionable content in this one.
Well, yeah, because we actually watched the full release of this, like how it originally released. And I was like, I don't remember this scene. Or I don't remember this song.
Yeah, so it talks about Kris Kringle and how he loves children and wants them to sit on his lap, and he's so happy about children sitting on his lap. Come sit on my lap, kids. Come sit on my lap. They cut this song usually.
Well, it's not just that he's like we're not taking this out of context. I mean, we are a tiny bit, but like he is like, come sit on my lap or else something bad will happen to you. Like, that is literally the song.
Mm-hmm. And, like, the whole concept of Santa Claus is really creepy if you think about it, because he just loves watching children no matter what they're doing.
Yeah.
And he wants them to come sit on his lap. And he enters people's homes while they're sleeping to give things to small children. Santa Claus is a creepy old man. Why do people like this character? I mean, I know why people like the character. But
yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to think about it in that way.
But this movie makes it hard not to think about it.
Yeah, it does. Like, it's not a good Santa Claus origin story. Especially nowadays, there's so many better Santa Claus origin stories, like Klaus.
Mm-hmm.
Or even, this isn't even like a Santa Claus origin story, but like Arthur Christmas, where like you really do get the feeling of the kind of like giving nature of the characters, and like they like kids. They're not creepy and watching them and omnipotent, but you know, they're just very generous and want to spread goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the kind of Christmas stories I want to see. This misses the mark on several key points. And another big problem of this is that it's aged poorly in a way that it could not foresee it aging poorly. The stuff that it talks about then, like, you know, him being like, come sit on my lap or something bad will happen to you, was not as much of a like, that's a questionable comment to be made. Like, if anybody said that now, of course it would be like, that's a red flag.
Stranger danger.
Right. We as a society have set up cues to be like, hey, don't
say that.
Yeah. But like in the 70s, the shoddily made TV special, like, honestly didn't know better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny to watch now.
There are a few other original songs from this movie, one of which is stuck in your head for all time.
Oh yeah, this song lives in my head rent-free, and it's not the song you're probably thinking about. It's the put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. Anytime I need to get ready to go somewhere or leave the house, this song plays in my head.
Yup, it does. I mean, it's honestly probably the best song from this movie, which isn't saying a lot because half of them are Christmas carols that were not originally made for this movie, but were from before this movie.
Yeah, and they're just trying to like shove them in to make them make sense.
Uh-huh. And then the other half are songs about Santa Claus wanting small children to sit on his lap. Or really slow, bad, painful love ballads
Oh God. This song usually gets cut too.
Soon to be Mrs. Claus pining for soon to be Mr. Claus. It's not good. So overall,
this movie makes some really weird tangents and leaps in logic to like try and weave this mythos together of like these songs, these Christmas carols and other like myths. Cause they like have him go by Kris Kringle, but then he decides to change his name to Santa Claus.
Because that's his original name. It doesn't matter.
The elf people used to be royal toy makers. I don't know where this is going. There's a winter warlock and a penguin who never get brought up ever again, even though, like, there's so many of these Christmas movies.
That are canonical with each other to some extent.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's all we really need to say on Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
I'm sure you've seen it. If not, it's not really worth checking out.
Just don't.
There are a couple of nice bits of animation, but most of it's pretty bad.
Most of it's pretty bad because it's very low budget and, like, the puppets are the same, like...
Fun fact, there's also some quote-unquote traumatizing scenes that have been edited out of the TV release, like the toys getting burned in the middle of the square, or Chris jumping up on the rooftops to escape. Because they didn't want kids to try that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's move on from 1970. We're moving on to 1971 with A Christmas Carol.
Directed by Richard Williams.
Yes, this was a short, not a full film, but who cares? This is the best Christmas Carol adaptation I think I've seen. That's not true. I really like the Mickey Mouse one.
Yeah, it's like, don't lie to yourself. You really like that Mickey Mouse one.
Uh-huh. So, it's a pretty faithful adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Plus, we have to mention this too. The Muppets Christmas Carol is also good. Because if you do not mention the Muppets Christmas Carol, people will throw hands.
I've only seen it once.
I've only seen it once
and
too.
I'm not invested in the Muppets.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine, but like we're not talking about that. And won't be on Animation Pilgrimage because we're not talking about puppet stuff.
Yeah.
So this one is very nicely animated. I like looking at this movie. This
So,
short
like
is very
I said,
good to look at.
This was directed by Richard Williams. Ken Harris from Disney was a visual style developer for the film, and then it was produced by Chuck Jones, which means he probably didn't really have much of a hand in it, but he produced the project. And yeah, this movie, the movie style is wild. It has a lot of animated backgrounds and transitions that are disorienting to look at, for sure, but
would be a lot
really
to do for just a short.
Yeah, and the movie's very, very fluid. You know, we already talked about Richard Williams a little bit on Animation Pilgrimage with his Raggedy Ann and Andy movie, but like his style really comes through here, and it makes me laugh because Scrooge looks so much like Richard Williams, and it's not in any
malevolent way.
No. It's not even like he physically looks like him, but it's the mannerisms that Scrooge has.
Okay.
Are things that I've seen Richard Williams do just when he's talking in a lot of his like lessons and stuff. It's so funny to see, like, and animation's one of those things where it's like animators are actors, and I feel like in Richard Williams' work you can really see him acting the parts, and that's so cool to see.
Hell yeah.
Another awesome thing about this short is the way that the three spirits, well, four, I guess, if you count Marley, the spirits are portrayed. Like
they're visually distinct from each other and like
creepy.
Oh yeah, this movie's dark.
Very dark. It was specifically not made for children in mind, and like, yeah, that should be obvious when you watch it because there's some horrifying stuff in here. This is one that I absolutely would recommend people check out.
Yes.
With the caveat of if you get motion sickness, you might want to skip out on this one.
Yeah, some of the animation is a little jarring for that.
Yeah.
But it's very pretty, very dark. It takes...
It was like a 20-minute special?
Yeah, something like that. It's really short. It keeps up a steady clip, but it doesn't cut elements that I often see cut from other adaptations, like a lot of the darker elements. Like the Christmas Present has like the gremlin children of like hunger and fear or something.
Famine and ignorance.
Or something like that cling at him.
Yeah.
Those characters are usually cut.
Yeah.
Because it's really dark and depressing. But no, this version keeps those in and other things like that. It's like, yeah, it's dark. It's good. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to talk about. So
there's one last thing to talk about. So this short won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. It was originally released on TV, did so well that it then went to theaters the year after, and was then a contender for like Oscars and Academy Awards. But this upset the Oscars and Academy people, because they're like, we don't want something that aired on meager TV to be considered on the same level as stuff that was truly theatrically released. And so then the Academy made a rule the next year where they're like, if it was released on TV first, then it's not allowed to be a contender if it gets released to theaters later.
Cool. I mean, on some extent, that's kind of the rules we've made for ourselves, but that's mostly just to limit how much we watch, because otherwise we'll never be done.
Well, and we're not doing the theatrically released rule in a way of like saying, you know, oh, well, theatrically released films are the only thing that matters in the history of animation.
Yeah, no.
That's why we do these episodes, so that we can cover some of the other important stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because this was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this short.
So yeah, go Christmas Carol.
Yay.
Next up.
Let's get out of Christmas for a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
In 1972, The Lorax was adapted as another short. And in case you're unaware of the story of The Lorax, it's literally... it's an environmental story about screw big business. They're polluting and destroying the environment.
I speak for the trees.
And they get away with everything. And in the end, humanity loses because they've killed everything. It's a depressing story.
Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to change. It's not, or something like that.
And, like, sure, that's a good sentiment, but it doesn't... It's hard for an individual to do anything to make a difference now. Like, looking at it nowadays, it's like, no, it's impossible for individuals to do anything unless us as individual means literally everyone goes and, like...
burns down big business and eats the rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, it's kind of, unfortunately, really out of our hands, and it's frustrating as hell.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one of those one of those stories that's, you know, well-intentioned. And, like, I'm definitely not against, like, the Lorax continuing to be a, like, story that is taught to children and stuff, because I think it breaks down the idea of, you know, big, bad, evil businesses doing what they want for greed and money fairly well and in a way that, like, kids can understand. But, you know, it is one of those things where it's an oversimplification, and this idea that individuals can really have that big of a part in changing our current climate situation is definitely a myth we need to squash, because that is not the case.
Mm-hmm. It's like, it doesn't matter how much I personally don't pollute. If, like...
The world is still going to go up in flames if big companies who are responsible for 70% or more of the environmental harm done to the planet don't change.
Yeah. So it's like, ooh, look, I recycle and I turn off the lights when I'm not in a room.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna do diddly shit.
Right.
In the grand scheme.
Yeah. So, this was produced by... essentially a company made by Dr. Seuss to make this. So he was obviously very passionate about this also getting a TV special.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to have any other big animators tied to it, and I wonder if that's because of the slightly controversial nature of this book.
Mm-hmm. Because it's directly calling out big companies.
Right.
All big companies. And so big companies are a lot less likely to want to associate themselves with this.
Yes. And in another day of Americans missing the fucking point,
mm-hmm.
the biggest controversy that, like, or one of the big controversies that this book stirred up is that, well, we think that this demonizes the logging company specifically. So there was literally a logging company that made their own book called The Truth Axe, where they try to counter-argument a Lorax-like individual. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
And they try to, like, be like, oh, well, no, see, we logging companies aren't bad because we actually plant a lot of trees, too. And, like, one of the points that the people arguing with them make is, like, yeah, but you're also, like, not taking into account, like, what this is doing for, like, the environment and, like, the animals living in those areas. And then also, like, you're killing species of trees and you don't even know about them. And they're just kind of like, whatever. And then the person arguing with them is like, you know what? You're right. Whatever.
Wow.
So, luckily, that has been, like, pretty much lost to time. But I had to bring it back because whoever wrote this book, I hope your shame is forever.
Was the paycheck good enough?
As far as this short goes, like, it's a solid short. I think it's way better than the 2012 movie in actually, you know, saying what the movie is, like, the message of the book is trying to be. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much a direct adaptation of the book, which is what it should be. The length is already, like, a tiny bit padded for the sake of making it a TV special.
Mm-hmm. There's songs in this.
Yeah.
Like, there's multiple songs in here.
Yeah. But then the fact that there's, like, a whole ass hour and a half long movie about this too is just like, why?
Yeah.
There's not enough content here.
For that.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So yeah, Lorax is one I definitely recommend checking out if you haven't ever before.
Mm-hmm.
Next on our list, we have the 1974 TV film, The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Rankin Bass is back at it again with the same Santa Claus, sort of.
I mean, it is the same Santa Claus, but
it's
like...
same voice actor. The
yeah,
puppets
it's Mickey Rooney again.
The puppets are completely different, but it's supposed to be somehow in the same canon, but like they change everything because they do that every time one of these comes out.
Drove me bonkers as a kid, and it drives me nuts now.
Because like they reference things about the Santa Claus is coming to town.
And Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah, but like all of these are completely different.
Yeah.
Like, they're separate stories.
They're different enough. Like, they're not completely different, but they're all different enough that it's very confusing.
Yeah. Anyways, this one is about Santa Claus needing a sick day because he's overworked and nobody believes in him. So he takes a very struggle and rigorous sick day of running around the world and finding people that care about him while some of his elves and Mrs. Claus also do random shenanigans.
Well, let's not mince words here. Santa Claus throws a little white boy fit tantrum. And, like, he's like, people don't appreciate me anymore, so I'm gonna lay in bed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so everyone else has to figure out how to make Santa Claus feel better. And then Santa Claus, at one point in this movie, sits down and, like, sings a song, like, a song at a small kid for not believing in Santa Claus and just shames the hell out of him with his parents getting involved too.
Oh yeah.
So it's this old random white guy, grandpa dude he's never met, and his parents shaming him into believing in Santa Claus again. What the hell?
You wonder why kids who like you wonder why we have this culture of people who believe in something where there is no facts to back them up, absolutely digging their heels in. Mm-hmm. Like, we created this.
This is in the 70s. This is the stuff that the boomers were watching as they grew up. You wonder why they are the way they are.
But, okay, nice things to say about this short. The production quality here is actually pretty nice.
Yes, it's much higher than it was in the earlier ones.
The sets look really nice. Mm-hmm. The animation's better.
There are less songs that need to be cut because of
weirdness.
Problems.
Yeah. Speaking of songs.
There is an absolute banger of the two-part song of Heat Miser and Snow Miser, which
Yeah.
are just... Mwah! I love this song. And I hate Christmas. But if there is one good thing that came out of any of the Rankin Bass shorts, it's this song for me.
Does this song live in your head rent-free?
Yes.
Good.
It does. I had a cover of this song, like, as one of those MP3s I had when MP3 players were a thing. And I would never skip it if it came up.
You're like, fuck yeah, the Beat Miser song. Yeah, it slaps.
Heat Miser.
I'm Mr. Sun. Yeah, it's good. Like, what can you tell you?
It slaps. It's a heckin' bop.
And they knew it too, because Miser Brothers got like a whole other short.
What?
Themselves from Rankin Bass, like a few years later.
Why did I not know about this?
There was a million shorts, dude.
Okay.
There's one where Rudolph goes on like a time travel journey.
Oh no.
To save the New Year baby or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, we're not watching or as in any more of these, I think. I think this is probably the last Rankin Bass stop motion Christmas short or holiday short, I should say, that we're going to be watching.
Yeah, because they all kind of dip down in quality and memorability after this, I feel. I could be proven wrong by that, but the fact that, the last one we're watching for this decade was from 1974, and I don't think they go on to make more of these in the 80s. So,
probably not. So, I'd
have to double check my facts there, but...
They're going away, and nobody cares. Because they'll play these on repeat anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, the last film we watched is more so of a film than these other movies.
Yeah, those others are like TV specials or shorts. This is an actual film. It's still a TV film, but it's one of those that we contemplated covering in Animation Pilgrimage proper, but no, it's still a TV movie because it's The Hobbit from Rankin Bass in 1977. It's the last thing we're covering for the 70s of shorts and TV specials, and you might be saying, but what about this? And I say, I don't care.
We tried. Damn
We're
it.
still talking about 5 movies in one episode. Cut us some slack here. There's so much TV animation. It's going to make my head explode. So this came out 1 year before the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah.
But definitely took less time to make than Ralph Bakshi. So I'm sure it's what... I don't know this for sure, but this feels like one of those Ants Bugs Life things.
It probably was. And to explain that, in case people don't know, an Ants Bug Life thing means one company heard that the other company was going to be doing this thing, so to capitalize on that and steal the market of said thing, they also decided to make a very similar movie.
And then release it either before or at the same time as the other one. In this case, it was Pixar making A Bug's Life, so the newly established DreamWorks made Ants and released it beforehand.
Yeah, and there's more to go into that, but we won't go into that until we get to the 90s, so...
Just know that's what we mean by this.
Yeah.
Because, Ralph Bakshi was working on his Lord of the Rings movie for a while. And then suddenly Rankin Bass was like, oh, yeah, we can pay a bunch of foreigners to poop out a Hobbit film in, 3 months. And then release it before the Lord of the Rings.
Well, and there's a whole licensing issue going on here as well. Rankin Bass claims that they made their Hobbit film because it was in public domain. Which...
I don't think so.
Yeah, does not sound like the truth. I don't know for sure, but that sounds a little fishy. And then and then the Bakshi film came out. And then Rankin Bass made The Return of the King.
Another TV special that was a sequel to The Lord of the Rings from Ralph Bakshi.
To which Rankin Bass claims that before they had even heard that Bakshi was making a Lord of the Rings movie, they were like, oh, well, from the start, we were planning on making a Lord of the Rings, or a Return of the King sequel. And I'm like, bullshit, you were.
Why would you start the story there?
Yeah. Why on earth would you start the story there? Like, look, I'm not here to be like a Bakshi stan or anything, but...
I have issues with the man, but he was done dirty in this
He was done dirty on this. Now, that being said, The Hobbit's a perfectly fine movie.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. The animation itself is generally low quality because it was made for TV, but the character designs are disturbing in like a good way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's...
Like, they're really ugly.
It's ugly, but in a kind of like cool, fun to watch way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like watching an illustration come to life.
Which is similar yet different from the Ralph Bakshi adaptation.
Yeah. Like, honestly, I feel like Rankin Bass tackling The Hobbit and Bakshi tackling The Lord of the Rings is very suitable for both studios.
Yeah, it's funny, but like it's pretty appropriate because Rankin Bass is very lighthearted, and whimsical, if you would say that, which makes sense for The Hobbit, which is more lighthearted and whimsical.
Well, and yet Rankin Bass also has that kind of like uncanny valley, like unpolishedness to it, which I think works well for The Hobbit as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then The Lord of the Rings is the more masterfully done, darker, more serious toned thing, which is what Ralph Bakshi loves.
Right.
So I know we briefly talked about The Hobbit very briefly during the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings review from last year.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, now that we're talking about The Hobbit, I think it's appropriate to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
It's to talk about the movie a little bit. It's The Hobbit, a small dude from the Shire gets picked up by 13 dwarves and a wizard, and he has to be a thief for them, even though he's never done any thieving before. Hijinks ensue. He kills some trolls through the use of sunlight, gets a magic sword, a ring that allows him to be invisible. He has a battle of the wits with a gremlin in a cave, outwits a dragon. The dragon then proceeds to burn down a human village
town
because he's angry, and then the humans kill it. And then there's a
war.
There's a war between the dwarves and everybody else for the treasure. And then they all unite to fight some goblin guys.
Well, but the Hobbit is knocked out for the entire battle. Well, so he doesn't even, like...
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes he's knocked out. Sometimes he's like, no, I just didn't fight.
Well, but I think in the book, he's knocked out.
Something like that, yeah.
Like, he misses the whole battle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, it's like, Bilbo was getting ready, and then something hit him in the back of the head. Next paragraph. Oh, you're finally awake, says Gandalf. You missed the whole thing. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure that's how that goes down in the book.
Something like that. It's like, you missed the whole thing. By the way, your friend's dying.
Yeah. Oh, boy. The Hobbit.
It's a time.
Anyway, another fun fact, I guess. Sort of. Fun. The fun we get to have on Animation Pilgrimage. This was animated by Topcraft in Japan. And then Topcraft would later go on to make Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind.
Ooh, okay. Fancy.
And then get bought, and subsequently the majority of their animators fired by Studio Ghibli. And then those animators who were fired went off to go create their own other studio, who continued making stuff for Rankin Bass, like Thundercats, until Disney buys them and turns them into Disney Animation Studios of Japan. Fun!
Wow!
Look at the fun we get to have. Wow!
It's so interesting that they help make Nausicaa, and then Ghibli buys them. Like, Ghibli becomes a thing, buys them out, fires everybody.
Like I said, fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. God, the working conditions of
animation
is
not good.
Is bad, and is still bad in most of the country, but really bad in Japan and China and other countries where it's just shipped out there by Western.
Us.
Yeah, America.
Yeah.
Mostly. God, why is it so terrible?
Hollywood is savage, and pseudo-Hollywood is even more savage.
Yeah. Well, overall, I would say most of these are worth checking out. I would not recommend watching the Christmas specials made by Rankin Bass.
The Christmas Carol by Richard Williams is
like
worth
the other three that we talked about. A Christmas Carol, the Lorax, and the Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, check them out. I think they're all pretty good.
Check out our favorite songs from this decade. The Heat Miser and Freeze Meister songs. And One Foot in Front of the Other. Tell us what you think. Do we have taste? Leave it in the comments below.
Either way, I think that is going to be it for animated specials and shorts from the 70s.
Yeah.
So join us back here next time as we talk about animated television shows from all of the 70s.
Our work never ends.
Yeah, it never ends. The 70s will never end.
We're close.
We're close. We're very close. We're very, very close. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Mr. White Christmas. I'm Mr. Snow. I'm Mr. Icicle.